Greetings. Welcome to Speak Nerd and
I'm
Enter.
right now.
Oh, it's a turtle. It's a turtle.
All right. Welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter. I'm Sean, of course. And next to me there is my compatriot, Rich. Rich, give a wave. Very good. On the other side, all the way on the far side there, is our friend Mark. Mark, give a wave there. And just back from his stint on Gorm, where he took part in the righteous crusade of the Empire, massacring all those people, and doing his part in bringing the donuts. The K-Man.
Hello.
All right, guys. Listen, the thing I wanted to talk about the most right off the bat is the dichotomy between the two, because you have two series that come out with season 2 right now, which is, of course, The Last of Us and Andor. And both first seasons were, well, one was hailed more, I would say, than the other. Andor was one of my personal favorites. I know Rich didn't like it. No.
You're so wrong.
We were just talking about that.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say they were both well received.
Now I've changed my opinion.
They were
I don't
both
like it.
well, they were both well received, yes. But Andor was more divisive than was The Last of Us. And so whilst it was reviewed well and had a strong following, The Last of Us was like universally loved, you know, and people really got behind that and that whole thing. So they were interested, I think, in the second season of Andor, but they were really looking forward to the second season of The Last of Us. And I don't know, have any of you seen The Last of Us? I know you've seen Andor, but have you seen The Last of Us?
I have not started the second season yet.
I started the second season, but I'm only one episode in.
Okay. I'll be intrigued to see what you think. Do you want to, in that case, I wonder if I should even broach this subject. Do you want to know what I think of it, or do you want to reach your own conclusion first and then talk about it?
I'll say
Let's
episode
save
one
it.
is already.
Let's save it until more of us
Okay.
have seen it, because I'm about to
Alright,
watch it.
Fine.
Okay.
Shut up.
I would be very interested to see what your thoughts are on the two shows and what they've done with that second season. But since you're more familiar with Andor at this point, I am more than eager to talk about that one. Who would like to go, or would you like me to go?
You
Go
can
ahead.
What's that? You both spoke at the same time.
Go ahead.
Go.
All right. I loved it. I thought it was a tour de force. That was great cinema. I know.
And as of this recording, we are 9 episodes in, so we haven't
Yes.
finished the whole season. Where with all that are available is the first 3 drops.
Three of us are 9 episodes in.
Right, correct. 3 of us.
One of us is only 6, so he doesn't know.
I'm only a third as good as you.
Yeah, he doesn't know that in Rogue One everyone dies. So
What?
not you. You're not the one I'm talking about. That was Rich. I thought it was great, man. I really did. I know the first. See, this is the thing with the way he makes those shows. Tony Gilroy, the way he makes those shows. I think to some people it seems like maybe it starts off slow or off in a tangent or something like that. But I honestly believe he's got a purpose in that. I kind of relate to his storytelling, where he likes to kind of simmer in that story for a little bit in things that would otherwise seem unimportant, or in what? I'm sorry.
Context and drama. I mean, things that are good in stories.
Context
And drama, I believe is what he said.
Yes.
I got you. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. I think he likes to do that. That may or may not be your thing, whatever. I enjoy his storytelling, but I think it would be very hard to argue with the result by the end of the arc that they have out there so far. I have been truly impressed with that. Episode 8, I thought was amazing, just absolutely amazing in how it was done, shot, told, acted, all of that. Every aspect of it, I thought was really, really well done. I heard someone else say this same thing that I know we have talked about and that we have said in specifically about Andor. We've waited 40 some years for this kind of Star Wars, this kind of story that we started out as 7, or somewheres in that range when we saw Star Wars in the movie theaters. And we were the target audience, the kids who would go to the theater and, buy all the toys and all that stuff. And it was a very simplistic story that way. But as we grew and the fan base grew, the stories that we wanted, that we were looking for, were we wanted them to be comparable with where we were in our growth, in our maturity. And still, it wasn't quite there. The prequels were, I think, an effort towards that, but didn't quite hit the mark completely in either direction. There were flashes, sure, but not.
And then there were 13-year-old democratically elected queens.
Yes, exactly. Who then become senators? Yes,
obviously, yes.
Yeah, obviously. So
there was Jack Black and Lizzo.
Well, that was much later. Let's be honest.
Much
that
later,
was after
yes.
that, right? But we've been waiting for, or I've been waiting for this kind of storytelling in that universe for so long. And I was so gratified to see that. I really was. I loved it. Can't talk highly enough about that series. That's my brief, my brief thing on it. What about you, Rich?
In terms of what? In terms of the storytelling?
Kelly, what did you think?
In terms of the... Go right ahead.
Oh my God.
You can't do that when I'm in the middle of drinking.
Holy shit.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, in terms of the storytelling, I agree with you. I think it's a much more adult take on the Star Wars universe. It is. I will say I have seen some of the complaints about it, that some of the topics that are being broached don't belong in those types of stories. But at the same time, it's all stuff that would probably have been in the background of those stories in the first place. It just hadn't reached that kind of development of the universe and the stories and all of the things that needed to be in place to tell the more adult stories. Plus, you're right. I mean, the audience in the past was children. Now the audience, I mean, they've really kind of lost a lot of the child audience in the modern era, because I think children aren't the same as they were when we were kids. They're much more mature, much earlier, in my opinion. They don't have perhaps as much focus or ability to. And this is not a criticism; it's just an observation. They don't have the ability to kind of stay on topic with one thing. There's much more. They've been ingrained much more with this quick dopamine hit of information or entertainment, and the long stories don't tend to resonate with them anymore. Whereas, and that's why I think some of these action movies that you see nowadays, they tend to be quick thing, maybe one small extended piece of drama, and then another quick thing. You need to have those little dopamine hits. Whereas this is a much more drawn out, long form, traditional type of storytelling, much more epic, in my opinion. Yeah. And I like it, but that's because this is the stuff I've always liked, right? Like the Horus Heresy. How many pages is? I'm looking at the books up on the, what is it, like 3,000 pages of story? That's a lot of story, and I have to say that even for my purposes, there's a lot packed into those episodes. Like even in the 3-episode chunks that they're putting them in, there's a lot going on. The first 3 that I watched, I mean, trying to keep track of, they kept going from place to place, and they told it very well, and I was not entertained, but it was just a lot of information thrown at you, and I had to sit back and to say, okay, let me think about this. All right, this connects back to this, and this connects back to this, and there's the thing that they didn't talk about but was shown in the background of this. I really like the fact that they seem to really try, with the first 3 episodes at least, they seem to really try to make it worthy of what the Star Wars universe was. Like that, the TIE Avenger chase was awesome. Cool. Especially the way they change the camera angles, and they're trying things with the way they shoot the scenes, that they're doing different angles and different stuff, and pulling stuff in from the movies that just made it really, I guess the way they did the chase through the canyon was similar to how they did the pod racing scenes, which were one of my favorite parts of the prequel trilogy. And the fact that they kind of did a throwback to that, I found that there's a lot of stuff there that if you really like the Star Wars stories, that you could really dig into it. It wasn't just surface, right? Like the Boba Fett or the Mandalorian, it was kind of just like a veneer of the Star Wars. I didn't like that last season of Mandalorian. Oh, so wretched. And this just seems like they really dug their hooks in and said, we're gonna with this, and I like it. I don't agree with all their decisions, but I do like the story. So that's my opinion.
All right, Kelly.
I could not disagree more. No, I thought the first 3 episodes dragged on forever and ever and ever. I mean, I understand slow rolling a story and trying to add context and thing, but I checked each episode out of the first 3 multiple times just to check how long this episode is, because I feel like I've been sitting here watching it for hours. And I was just like, do we have to spend this much time on this wedding? Do we have to spend this much time on Andor being, held hostage by a group of morons in a jungle? And the answer is no. No, we don't. And once we got beyond that, show took off again for me. Once we got into the meat of some things, it was a little bit better, in my opinion. When once we got out of those settings and I feel like the show got its footing, then I felt like I was watching Andor again. But for the first 3 episodes or so, it was a bit of a haul for me to get through it. And then in each of the other drops of episode blocks, I was glued to the TV. I couldn't get enough of it. And it was fun to see how it develops and how certain characters come into play, in relationship to what's going to happen later, once you get to Rogue One and that kind of thing, to see that start to happen. Yeah, that was great. Really like that. I would like the Star Wars universe at some point to address the fact that stormtroopers can't seem to hit a damn thing, though.
One could.
Yeah.
unless they're in a huge crowd,
Yeah.
or if their last name is Peru.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. But I mean, they need to line up.
Flamethrowers on them.
They need to line up like an old musket line when they're going to start shooting and hope to hit something at this point.
Yep. What about you, Mark?
Can't hear you, brother.
That's the most salient thing I've ever heard you say.
It was amazing.
No,
it's
can't
awesome.
hear you now either.
Perfect.
No, I could tell you said, "Can you hear me now?" But I could not hear it.
Type it all in the chat and we'll read it out.
Oh, this is the greatest thing ever.
It is. It's amazing.
And he froze.
I'm tempted to actually interpret for him as he speaks.
He said everything we said was right, no matter how diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gone. And you're back. There we are.
I've heard enough Mark reviews that I can review this one on his behalf.
Say that again.
I liked it all. It was great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was weird. Yeah, I found a pedantic and derivative of season 1. That's all I have to say about that.
Two thumbs down.
No, but seriously, like I enjoyed everything about it. Even the slow part where Andor is being captured and he's with these very incompetent infighting rebels. I thought that showed that there's lots of people who want to fight against the Empire. Most of them aren't good at it.
Yeah.
Right? They're
Not everyone
unprofessional enough that they're
on
not
solo.
going to get anywhere against this encroaching evil. Right? They can't work together. They can't do these things. And even the little bits with Saul Guerrera, he's competent but ruthless. You know what I mean? That's not gonna endear loyalty. Yeah, those kind of things. So like, I appreciate it. And then Mon Mothma and the wedding. Like, this woman is living a double life and literally sold her daughter for the rebellion.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm like, that's the level of, and that speech that was it Luthen gave, in the previous season, I guess it was, like, that really showed that it's not strap on a blaster and go fight the Empire is the way this is getting done.
You're all in.
Like I'm here for Luthen and Mon Mothma and the political side of it, and the fact that she's at a party looking at art, talking to the main bad guy of Rogue One, right? I'm like, okay, like, I really enjoy all that. And like in the third drop with the gore, like, that just screamed French resistance in World War II. The visuals of it and everything, and I really appreciated what they were doing and going for. And like I say, this has been a breath of fresh air on the entertainment side. Like, I am enjoying everything about it. I can't really think of a thing that I'm just like, oh, that was dumb, or I wouldn't do that. Even the stuff that, reeks of modern day politics.
Yeah.
Like the woman in they're on that agricultural planet and they're illegal, right?
Illegal alien thing.
That makes sense, though, especially as the Empire is ratcheting things down and they're checking everybody's papers and all of that. It didn't feel like it was all up in my face making up a political, let's hit everybody over the head with a 2x4. It fit the story.
Yeah.
And it gave me a little something to, be like, wow, we're kind of dealing with some of this right now. Ooh, cool. I didn't think it was heavy-handed, and it really could have been overly heavy-handed and taken me out of the story, and it didn't. Does that make sense?
Your review reminds me of Moss from IT Crowd reviewing the play they went to during the work outing, when he said, "And I'm loving it."
Oh yeah,
and it has changed my worldview, and I'm questioning everything, and I love it. The theater. I'm disabled.
This is a great episode, by the way.
Yeah,
the IT Crowd. That was really good. I'd like to say, not that it matters, I'm sure, but I'm going to go ahead and invoke the spoiler
please go right
thing, for anybody who's watching or attending this particular conversation.
Go right ahead.
The 3 people that are attending.
You only watch so much media, so
welcome, viewer.
That Mark, that's the thing. I loved that part of the episode, that part of the storyline as well, for those very reasons, that it showed a lot of you could argue the uninteresting aspects, as you said, of the resistance, all those who never made it to the end because they were too stupid to, actually be a part of this. They were fanatical, but without intelligence, or like Saul Guerrera, intelligent but extremely fanatical and unhinged, and
he's nuts.
And that part echoes itself. And this is the thing, I don't think he wrote this for the Trump era. I think because this was obviously written a long time ago,
right
before any of this took place.
They didn't write it since January,
but you could throw any faction into, like, oh well, Saul Guerrera represents this type of ideology in any movement, and then there's other factions in there. This is kind of what it would be like as it finds its way to becoming an actual movement, and all that was just so well done. And like you said, not with a 2x4 where you're beaten over the head with, this is our message, you get it, you're either on board with this or you're wrong, that kind of thing. This was just what it was, and allowed for you to simply kind of bask in the story without having to be guided by some docent. You're supposed to go over here. You're supposed to feel this way. You're supposed to, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And I appreciated when the finance dude who helped cover up
Yep. Take
what they were
home.
doing,
Yep.
gets in the taxi with
Yep.
who we know is going to, and they don't show it. It's just assumed. And then a year later, he's like, remember my childhood friend, like,
Yep.
again, she is sacrificing a lot for the rebellion. And this was just this little throwaway person in the 1977 movie that's like, many Bothans died to bring us this, and
Yep.
to see this character get the arc that put her in that movie, I'm enjoying it. You know what I mean? Like I
agree with that.
really am liking it.
I agree that was something I was going to say before you brought it up, that you get a lot of the context why they were so respectful to her. The first scene in Yavin, when she was talking, it made all of it make sense because how much she sacrificed. She gave up her own kid for the cause of the rebellion. That's
to a gangster.
Yeah, to a scumbag. Yeah. So very very committed. Even to the point of Saw Gerrera.
And she's a senator, right? Which endears a certain amount of respect.
Yeah.
She's the AOC of her day.
Yeah. No, that's actually a very good analogy. Go ahead, Rich.
Inner workings, right?
I think
I know.
You may continue.
So, but no, I agree. It really gave a lot of depth and a lot of context to what you're right was just kind of a bit character, and showed that she had vast importance in the rebellion and how it all developed. So I found that, I think they're doing a really good job with that part of the storytelling. I think it's pretty skillful what they're doing with that.
Really, really skillful on the level of, I keep saying this, for me, on the level of Man in the High Castle, that level of writing. And maybe that's just because it was both about resistance stuff, but I really thought that they were written very well. And that side of it, the action side and the intelligence side, let's call it, neither of them overshadowed the other. I enjoyed both of them immensely. The episodes that are coming up, Rich, there's a fight scene in episode 8
you can spoil
that is to me the best I've seen in quite some time. And not because, and mind you, not because it was choreographed to, the nth degree, not because it was some John Wick level or Jason Bourne level thing. This fight scene was great because this was the most passionate, anger-laden fight for your life. I want to kill the other guy kind of fight I had seen on screen in quite some time. Just really,
right.
really
And neither
well
of the combatants seemed that they were not these trained hand-to-hand assassin killers like we're used to in a John Wick movie or in a lot of these, I could take on 10 guys and it's blocking and parrying and these very choreographed. It felt like a street fight.
Yeah.
In a good way, in the best way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan levels of drama is what you're saying. Yeah.
This one had, I'd say this one had even more passion to it somehow.
More like Ip Man fighting the Japanese.
Okay.
Well, there's a bit, Kelly, there's actually a bit of that because Ip Man, when he was fighting the Japanese, even though it was choreographed a lot, heavy, right? He did such a good job. Donnie Yen did such a good job of emoting anger and his rage in that I would say that part of it, I would say, yes, does equate to what that fight scene was. And that's what made it so good because it was visceral, man. It felt dirty. It felt just raw and angry and the kind of thing that if you were sitting in a bar or something, you could see break out, but without people being drunk, right? It doesn't have the sloppiness of the drunkenness. This is just, it was
I
really,
agree.
really good.
I agree. The fight scene was well done. I really do agree with that. I'm just joking around with it, but I thought it was well done. It was just those first 3 episodes. Once I got past that slow bit, man, it was off to the races. Once he gets out of the jungle, once the wedding thing concludes, and you start to
Mm.
see how all the pieces fall together, and you start to see this is, it's all teeing up what happens in Rogue One, and beyond. I agree with you. I think this is the type of storytelling this universe needs. It is. I am concerned though, because it's the only one that's done it since the
Yeah, I
Yeah,
beginning.
know.
and
I
and
know.
I will say
Now,
this: there's been a
Well,
couple of
something's gotta go
spots
first.
where they go, "Oh, 1 year later," like, "Oh, we've come to this point," and it's like it's been a year, and they continue it. You can't really do that in movies successfully.
right.
Yeah.
I love the way they've done that here because it's this slow boil that brings us head to head with the Empire and their encroachments. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like, oh no, we wake up and the Emperor's in charge of everything and Order 66 and all of these other things going on. You know what I mean? So I'm enjoying the time they're taking to tell the story, I guess is how I would
They're
say.
doing-
I just want to say this real quick. This one thing first before we get off of the fighting thing, and then the second thing in regards to what you're talking about now. The scene, not just the fight scene with the that we were talking about, but also the scene with the K2 robots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was great. That was
Yeah.
great. One thing Tony Gilroy has shown he is good at and really understands how to do is give you what would essentially be a terrifying look at a character in a very short amount of time, very effectively. So he did that so well with Darth Vader in the original Rogue One.
Yeah.
And that's what made that
man,
movie. To
sequence.
be honest with you, that was what made it. It would have been great without it, sure. But oh my gosh, was that not just the cherry on top? That was like you dropped a bowl of it, with heavy syrup, and it was just really, really good.
Yeah. And even when they turn him on after they reprogrammed him,
Yeah.
right? And there's 15 guys with guns pointed at him just in case it didn't work.
Right.
And and he's strapped down and he's in a cage, kind of, laying down there worried that this droid is going to just get up and start going whole ham on everybody. And it sold it. You know what I mean? Because everybody loves that character from the movies. And that's the guy that, Alan Tudyk, and he's funny. He's the comedic relief, and he's really good in the fight and everything. And it just like, to see this dastardly side of where he came from was awesome. I love it.
Yeah, truly deadly, and that was, if you were, people could say, well, why didn't you have him out there with a gun or any of that? Man, no, if you're trying to instill terror, you do exactly what you did, with those droids. That was great. That was really, really well done in that short amount of time, short and sweet, just to the point. And then move on with the story. That was so well done.
I would say that about the Saul Guerrero bits too, because I mean that was phenomenal in its own way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're talking about the bit where you're talking about the bit with the guy for the where he was trying to make that bomb. I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
Rubidium or something.
Yeah.
Bomb. Yeah, and he's you talking about the part where he starts
Yeah, because it's when you
sniffing
see
the
those
glue.
right, exactly. When you see those characters, when you see the development, right? What's the mindset? What's the philosophy that you get into? And you got that with the Saul Guerrero thing. You got it with the robots that come in. I mean, there were pockets of that started to come together, even with the Mon Mothma bits. That's the part of it that I really enjoyed. I thought, well, this is where this really comes into its own. And I hope that they do more of that. I really
Well,
do.
but see, this is the thing. This was going to be my second point. Now, I also want to talk about episode 9 because I think there was some really good stuff in there too. He's not going to do any more Star Wars. This is it.
No, but you have a blueprint you can follow.
I know, but
And they won't, but I'm just
they
saying it's
won't.
there.
That's the thing. Now, I will say, I've learned in my extreme old age here to be happy for these brief moments where you get something really, really good. Lord of the Rings, Andor, stuff like that, where you can look on it and you have that part that just, it is what it is now, and it's not going to be changed. They're not going to make it worse. It's somehow made it through as that rare gem where you can enjoy those few hours and truly let yourself exist in that universe, in that world, and that's rare. That's super rare. I just don't know if it's going to happen anymore, man. I don't know. Maybe there's another Tony Gilroy out there somewhere who wants to do a story or two.
Sure, but it's gonna. I mean, look, this one took effort, right? It took this many years to do this one.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a lot. I mean, I
And how much
imagine.
bad stuff surrounded it.
Right. I imagine the next outing will be like Sith babies, and we'll get like little miniature Sith lords running around.
Dropping them off at the Sith daycare.
I would like to bring up the scene. It's just from I believe episode 3, the scene that caused a lot of contention around the interverse, the sexual assault scene.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring it up. In fact, I saw a bunch of pretty popular pundits say, "Oh, this has no place in Star Wars," and all this stuff. Yeah, I got you. I agree. I'm getting there. So when they brought that up, it brought to mind. I said, "Did you not see the first Star Wars in 1977 when we were, less than 10 years old, and they killed 1 billion people on a planet just out of nowhere? That was every day. So you're thinking that the Empire doesn't have guys that are sexual predators in it?
Not to mention reduced Aunt Beru and Uncle
to slag.
To skeleton.
Yeah. Yes.
I remember as a 7-year-old seeing that scene,
burning on the side of the hut.
Yeah, I was like, wow, those dudes mean it.
They're just incinerated, and it was pretty graphic. I mean, it was their skeletons. They were obviously
smoking.
Yes. It's like, Mom, Dad, what? So, I think that the people that brought that up and said, "Oh, it has no place here," I said, you really aren't thinking about how this universe is developed. Yes, it was for children, but children in the 70s were introduced to genocide and assault by flamethrower. So
and don't forget, in the prequel trilogy, Anakin Skywalker.
Yes, that was the other thing. Anakin Skywalker murders an entire room full of children.
Yeah, looking to him for help.
And an entire tribe of sand people, everything, even the dogs. So
the women and the children. That's right.
Women, children, and the pets.
Yeah.
So
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The second Rich started speaking, everything went honky on my end, and it was silent for a little while.
In and out for some reason. Is one of your wires loose?
Okay. Yeah. Well, what I was going to say, kind of the broader point is the bad guys in this series are really, really good. I love that room with all the dudes in the white uniforms that the chick works in there, and Krennic coming in and going, "All right, I need you guys over here," and like they're ruthless and they're competent. And it's not these comical bad guys that the Empire or the rebels are running circles around them and they're done. No, like I love the competence of the bad guys and the characterizations and like the acting, and like even if I'm not rooting for them, they're played so well. You know what I mean? And that scene that Rich was talking about, that is like, oh, we have this evil empire, and here's this little vignette of one guy abusing his power. Yeah. You think that's not happening across an entire, galaxy of stars, right? You know what I mean? Like that. So like it did have a place, and it kind of shows like, there's this evil empire, but who loves to work in the evil empire? Like these kind of jackbooted thugs who, get a chance to abuse their authority.
Yeah. They're bad.
Yeah, they're just space Nazis.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you see? I've seen that association too, and I wouldn't drill it down to just. It seems like everyone wants to say, "Oh, they're just like the Germans and the Nazis." I said, "Well, yes and no. I mean, they share characteristics, but
A lot.
It's not. Yes. So do all authoritarian. So do all authoritarian imperialist
All right.
dictators.
Well, all right,
sure.
fine. There's Space
Sure.
Khmer Rouge.
See, I have no
And that's
problem.
George Lucas's history, though. So that was the era that he grew up in, was the post World War II era. So it
Yeah.
makes sense that he.
Well, also,
create
a
that,
lot of the costumes were based on that.
Well, yeah, they had
Yeah.
good fashion sense. I mean,
No, I mean that was the artistic design, was
Yes.
that it was given
Yeah.
a lot of, that sort of thing.
Genocide brought to
I
you by
would
Hugo
say-
Boss.
yes,
I would say there's
Literally.
nothing-
yes.
I would say there's nothing wrong with acknowledging inspiration for where those
yeah.
characters come from.
But it's
Are
not
they
just
exact Nazis?
Yeah.
No, because the emperor was actually very, very competent and very,
Yes.
very sane.
that.
That's
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
He
thing,
knew what he was doing,
which made him so much more dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with saying what the inspiration was.
Right.
No,
You know?
I understand that. It's just that people want to draw a one-to-one relationship. That's my point. Is
Meh.
I don't
What
agree.
do you
I
think?
with
drew
that,
it.
man.
I drew it. Go ahead. Refute it.
Okay,
can't. I win.
I refute it's a one-to-one relationship. There's all sorts of different empires from across history. There's Asian empires that it draws influence from. The Mongols it draws influence from. It draws influence from the Chinese. It draws influence from the Koreans. It draws influence from the Japanese. There's all
I don't
sorts
like your anti-Asian bent here, brother.
Yeah.
It draws
I don't like.
influence
Yeah.
from the Russians.
I don't like
it
his
draws influence from.
anti-Khmer Rouge.
Let me go to Europe. It draws influence from the Russians. It draws influence from the Persians. It draws influence from the Prussians. It's all.
I thought it drew inspiration from a movie that came out in 1977.
Or considering this is a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago.
Yeah.
True.
Did
Circa
all of
1944.
Did all of these draw inspiration from them?
That's
Just
a valid
like
point.
Conan.
What?
That's right. Yeah.
Just
Mhm.
like Conan. Conan is history, undocumented.
Mhm.
True.
This was before even then.
Hyperborean. So, but seriously, like I said, I just don't like to see it. I don't like to see it when they pigeonhole it down to, oh, it's this, oh, it's the Trump regime, oh, it's the Nazis, oh, it just draws away from the fact that you're watching a story that's supposed to take you out of our reality.
Right, but that's what I mean, though. The allegories are in there.
Yeah.
And they're well done.
I agree.
Not this beat you over the head with a baseball bat and
Yeah.
these kind of things.
Yeah.
And like the dude's mom, who is so annoying, right?
Yeah.
That he has to go lay on the bed and just to get away from her for 5 minutes and whatever. Her sitting there at the end crying, like, man, that was perfect. You
It
know
was.
she hates the Gorn, and you know that she's all in on whatever the Empire feed her.
Yeah.
Right, and she's going to be cheering the Empire on as they ascend to power, right?
But at the same time,
Because
he's
they're
a
going
bad-
to avenge her son,
He's a bad guy, so we're feeling sympathy for the devil. I mean, he's part of the Empire.
right? That's what makes it so good.
Yeah.
And for Dedra, even for her, and all those characters have such a good arc, have such rich writing for each of them. It was just so well done. It really was done.
You talk about the rebellion. What's her face's kid being married away for the rebellion. I mean, everybody sacrificed something in the. There's no hands clean. Everybody's left something on the altar of whatever their belief system is, and I like that aspect of it.
And that was really cool in the 9th episode, exploring that aspect of it and seeing Mon Mothma, as you were mentioning, going from someone who is essentially hands off, at a distance, kind of doing her thing, suddenly having to come to terms with, undeniably having to come to terms with what's going on, and her life is now very, very different and is never going to be the same again. And what has she lost? What has she given up?
She's got a lot of fingers and a lot of pies.
Right? Can you guys hear me? My computer went wacky again.
Yeah,
and we've seen her through the wedding and through just all the scenes that she's been in. She comes from a life of wealth and privilege and power. Right? She lives in a very nice place. She's hobnobbing with all the high and mighty people. And she's at the upper echelons of society, and now she's running off to hide in a jungle.
Yeah,
you cut out again. Now you're back.
Yep. She went to hide out in the jungle.
in the junk. Hide out in the junk. He's gonna restart it again because he's frozen.
No, he's
I know.
there.
No, my computer's going weird. Like the audio keeps turning off, and then
Yeah.
everything goes silent, and in a second it comes back. So, like, I finished my sentence, and then
Wow,
you guys
where
were
have we
talking,
seen
but
that?
I didn't hear a thing you guys were
That's
saying.
frustrating.
So,
That's
Yeah,
really
we just-
It is
frustrating.
frustrating.
That happens. It is.
Yeah.
Terrible.
but I'm like some people, I'm gonna actually try and fix the problem and not just live with it for a year and a half.
That was I thought your comment was very well made.
frustrating.
Having to live in a jung is quite
Live in
a
the junk.
quite a difference from growing
Yeah.
up in the Senate. And that was well said, Mark. Well said.
Those
Thank
days in the junk can really take it
and
out
by
of
the
you.
way, I did try to fix the problem.
Is that where I cut off? Jung.
Bad
I
juju
did
in
try
the
to fix
junk.
the problem by buying an entire new computer system. So
But
I guess that's
Andor's
just not enough.
Andor's actual sacrifice and how much they've given him as a character.
Yeah.
I was telling Helena because she was asking me so many questions. This is a testament to how good the show is that Helena is not a diehard Star Wars fan by any means.
But she's
She
interesting.
likes certain characters, but she doesn't know anything about any of that stuff. She doesn't. She knows Vader. She knows Maul. But she was asking me questions, and I didn't watch the series with her. I watched it while I was working out on my bike. She'd watch it upstairs, and so I was up there eating, and she'd watching the show. She'd turn around and force me to pause whatever I'm doing and ask me, hey, let me ask you some questions about this. So are these
Let me tell you
senators of is this like senators of planets, or what is this akin to? She starts asking me all these questions, and I realized they're questions I never would have gotten from her about any of it before. Never in the Phantom Menace did she say, so the chancellor, what is the process for electing him, and who is the there's none of that from the Phantom Menace. You were just wondering,
is E.T. on a flying throne.
yeah, you were just, well, not only that, at the pod race you were wondering, the only thing she wanted to know was when Darth Maul was showing up, right? And but this, she's asking me about the actual political landscape and how things work and who they are and all of that. So well done. And
after they burn down the Reichstag, then he becomes emperor.
Right.
Crystal mop,
But
First, the Night of 1,000 Knives.
when they stood up the Stromstaffel.
Yeah, it was just so well done.
Just tell her they're space Nazis.
Just tell her that. And
It'll be
She didn't. But see, this is the thing that was sad to me. She didn't remember Rogue One. She didn't remember almost all of Rogue One.
Really? Wow.
So when I'm telling her, that's what I'm saying. She's not a Star Wars fan, right?
Yeah,
It just speaks to the series. But I'm telling her that's why it's so important for people who are seeing this to at least be somewhat familiar with Rogue One, because it informs the tragedy, the full tragedy and sacrifice of all the characters in this show, especially the main characters, to what he's given up. So Luthen's speech echoes to every other character in this show, and how much they've had to sacrifice of themselves, and whatever they would have been is gone. You just kind of lose that without the pretext. But it speaks to the level of achievement.
It adds additional depth to characters like Saw Gerrera and all the characters that showed up in Rogue One, where they were interesting on their own, but this just gives them so much more context, like we were talking about at the very beginning, that we now get to see, okay, I see how he got to that spot where he ended up at, where he's just a complete nutcase that nobody trusts. And you see why, because of all the things that were going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he was in Rogue One.
Right, which also speaks to the competence of the Empire at rooting out these insurgencies and planting this false information and doing all of the things that they're doing.
I thought the propaganda guys were great. It's like, oh, well, we're going to, shape the opinion, and we're gonna, with spiders, and spiders are, people don't like spiders, so we're gonna turn it against them, and they're just farm
Yeah, how
simple.
you're right, exactly. You know, that whole idea that you're just taking this simple thing and turning it into this bigger
Yeah,
thing as a vehicle for what you want to do. I give a lot of credit to the storytelling overall because you could tell that the show, it has its budget constraints, right? But even within that, they found a way to tell an extremely compelling story.
yeah.
I mean, they did a lot with the resources they were given
Yeah.
that at the end I'm locked in. I'm actually starting to feel a bit, I'm actually starting to feel a bit sad that at some point I know it's gonna come to an end and then it goes into the movie and then that's that. And so I mean, kind of what Sean's point is, we got to be happy, you know, that this thing even exists to tell a compelling aspect of the Star Wars universe story.
But this is
But
what's missed now
yeah,
in modern stories. Like you have a movie that
yeah,
has a bunch of dangling points, and now they can go back and say, okay, now we're going to
exactly.
tell the story and
Right,
take the time. Like they don't do that anymore. Nobody thinks
right.
like that anymore.
Yeah, and I will say, like, just from a production standpoint, man, I'm digging the costuming and
Yeah,
It
like
really
of heralding the 1970s movie and the Rogue One and kind of making us feel it. Like that's one thing I never liked about some of the original movies is, oh, these people wear the same thing all the time. And we've got two uniforms. We've got a stormtrooper uniform and we've got the dudes in black. Well, we've got so many variations on uniforms, and some people looks like there's those guys from Bespin, and some people look like there's those guys from other places, but they're all different. And it feels like a real world where, like, oh, this is just clothes people wear, not like, let's give this Bedouin robes to Obi-Wan and turn that, morph it somehow into a Jedi uniform, which is one of the dumbest things about Star Wars ever.
like. Did you notice
So
the patch on Krennic's guys that it's the beams intersecting for a Death Star for when it shoots its laser, when it shoots its
Oh
giant
yeah.
turbo laser.
Yeah.
But the fact that that's on the patch and that's the beams, I thought that was super cool. It's like, oh, there's so much more symbolism there that people who don't know the movies and know the story, they just wouldn't get, right? It's the
yeah,
chiropractical
The
focusing on
merit,
that stuff.
the
Yeah.
merit badge to build space laser.
Yeah.
yeah,
Got it.
Space Laser Merit Badge, yeah. And the fact that they had this slave labor, the inmate labor
Yeah, the
work
prison
from
labor.
season
Yep.
one working on the Death Star. We know that they go to Jeddah and they basically rip out all the cyber crystals and whatnot. And the reason they're tearing up Gorn,
Score.
uh, Gore
Gore.
is they're like, yeah, we need all the stuff under the ground. We don't care about your spiders or your clothing. Yoink,
Or your
right? And
flugelhorns.
yeah, or your flugelhorns. Like, so it shows like, hey, yep, tough luck for you guys. You have what we need. We're gonna come get it. And we did this elaborate plan to make everybody hate you so that when we do it, they're not gonna mind. And
They
it's showing the ruthlessness of, now I have a space station that can blow up your whole planet, fall in line, right? Which
Yeah.
makes the Death Star feel more dangerous than it ever has before. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just showed up in Star Wars and you're like, whoa, that's awesome. Now we're kind of seeing the lengths that they went to get it. You know what I mean? So I'm enjoying it.
Oh no, we're gonna use it to build something that blows up planets in 1 second, but we maybe messed up the core of your oh dear.
And the level of what would you call it, subtlety perhaps, with which the story addresses all the things that normally the Star Wars fan base is beaten over the head with, that they don't like because they're to this or to that.
Yep.
This had powerful and effective characters of varying races, and men and women and all of that. Never once were you pandered to for any of that. It was a story driven, character heavy endeavor that did not make it focus that this is a woman in a man's galaxy, or this is, it was all just what it was. And that's what made it so good. Like in Alien, Sigourney Weaver was not an oddity because she's a woman. She was there because she was the best one for her job, and it was never a question. It was never brought up. It was never an issue. Same thing with this. Dedra is where she is because she's good at what she does and she's willing to do it. You know, that was so refreshing to have that kind of storytelling. That's what makes it good. And when you have a good story with good characters who are able to do that, that's not an issue. You know, that really, I thought, was a day and night thing for the writing level between this project and so many of the others, where then you're told, well, you just don't like it because you don't like these kinds of people, or, you know, you're misogynistic or whatever. No, this is what you need. You need this kind of writing, this kind of effort for something that's so beloved.
I don't like villains.
Then, huh?
I don't like villains. So, you know.
Right, but I like all the villains in this movie or in this show. Heck, I like Director Critic.
I don't. I love the characters, but I'm saying that I don't have to be aligned to the villains to enjoy the characters. Like, I don't need to.
But it helps. Thought that was going to land a little better than it did.
But anyway, I thought that was a refreshing example of something that can be. I don't know how it's being received by everybody.
I think a lot of people don't like it. I mean,
I don't know. I looked on Rotten Tomatoes, and there was a huge number of people that do, and I've seen nothing but positive reactions from the ones I've seen. So I don't know how everybody else is, you know, receiving it, but
well, I don't care. I'm loving it.
I'm with Mark on that one. No, exactly.
Yeah.
I actually can't pay attention. I deliberately stay away from a lot of commentary on things while I'm actively watching something.
Yeah.
Just because I don't need that clouding, polluting, or otherwise getting in my way. I like it. I thought it was well done in spite of my early criticisms of it. I think just like the first season, it's a strong outing. I need to see more of this, and less of Baby Yoda.
And now, I think we're far enough in that I think the concerns coming into season 2 were like, were they going to be able to keep it as strong as season 1?
And they did.
And they did. I think that's the real consensus. Is like, I think we were all like, you know, we love this. Are they gonna keep it going? And
you know where it has to go.
Yes, they have it. Yeah. And that is freeing. Like, I love the fact that there's a bunch of characters in here we know and care about that could totally die at any moment. You know, like, okay, we know the droid's gonna live, and we know Andor's gonna be fine, and we know Mon Mothma's cool, and that general dude who tells them to shoot Jyn Erso's dad. Like, okay, there's like 4 people in there.
We lost him again. There we go. You're back. Mm-hmm. You're back now.
Don't sing to me. Don't sit there and play music to me. Damn, it's cheap composition.
I feel like Rich. Is this how you live all the time? No wonder you're so angry.
Not anymore. Since I fixed the problem.
I like that you Mark right now. Mark right now looks like he's on Channel 20 Kung Fu Theater, where there's this voice and then his mouth. 20.
Yeah. I'm here to avenge my father.
No, I like that. Even though you know where this ultimately ends, right? Because you see Rogue One, you know where it goes. Still, even knowing there's this finality to the story, just exploring the space of what that is. You see the characters introduced. How did they come together? That kind of thing. And I mean, could they drag it out for longer? I mean, could they put more episodes? Of course they could, but I think they've done an amazing job with what they have.
So the thing about this is it's now inspiring me to go back and watch Rogue One again to see, okay, here's where these connections are.
Oh, right? I fully intend to. As soon as this wraps up, that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that shows the quality of it, that it then inspires you to go back to the source material and say, I want to check this again. Now I'm going to have more. Did they actually think about that when they were making this first movie? Did that actually kind of get blended into what they did now with the prequel stuff?
I'm going to show Helena Rogue One.
Oh yeah,
as soon as it's
watch
done.
it again now.
So show her again so that she can understand, because she asked me. She said, "So I said, you don't remember any of it?" She said, "No, not really." She said, "So what do you mean? What happens to these characters?" And I just looked at her and I said, "They all die."
Like
and
dramatically.
Fiery death.
I did.
Fiery
I
death
said,
now.
Yeah,
they
all of
die,
them.
And then I walked away. I mean, it's what do you mean?
They die in fiery flame.
So yeah,
Literally.
Yeah. The whole planet just, but it's beautiful when it happens. It is pretty.
yeah. But knowing that gives
Yeah.
it so much more gravity when you're watching this show.
Hey,
And
go ahead. I have a question though. So when the one chick, they're all like bringing new recruits in on Yavin, and there's this table full of guns. She picks up this blaster and go, who belongs to this? And this guy's like, oh, that's mine. Who's he? Like, I know that must have been a callback to something,
Han
but
Solo.
I didn't catch that.
I
Did
don't
any
know.
of you know
No.
who that was?
How are
No.
you?
Okay, me neither. I thought it might have been one of the guys from Rogue One who breaks Jyn Erso out of jail, but I'm not 100% positive. You know what I mean? So that's just that was one of the few things, like I know that was a callback, or that was a an Easter egg for someone, but I didn't get it. So
We're all fine
Yeah.
here. How are you?
It's
yeah.
Lando Calrissian. That's who he
Yeah, but no,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
definitely not Lando Calrissian. I know what he looks like.
was. That was just before he went to the Cloud City and took over.
Who's this?
Mm.
So it's funny because I still have a lot of love for, speaking of Han Solo, I still have a lot of love for that Han Solo movie that a lot of people hate. I thought there was that same kind of care was given in that movie, handled real well because of the way the movie was made, because they had so many directors coming and going and things like that. But I really like the fact that this series, it seems like the people that are doing it, they said, look, we're losing this genre. It's going, we're killing it. We really need to put some effort into showing that we care about the story and care about the fans and care about people who've watched it for a long time. And I see that in this, that like even with those things like the TIE Avenger is such a throwback that it's a deep cut, and it's just thrown out there like, oh yeah, here's this TIE Avenger, and it's a major part of those first 3 episodes. But unless you have some background on where it came from and why it's important and where it fits into the story, you just say, oh, it's just another TIE fighter. Like, what's the big deal, right? So I really like the fact that it seems like, I wonder if you guys know who Doug Chang is, right? The concept artist. I wonder if he had a lot more input into this. Say, look, we really need to explore some of the deeper aspects of this property and not just gloss it over like we did in The Mandalorian. And everything's about Baby Yoda and selling toys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I
Although I'll tell you, I could do with a K2 toy where he's kicking a jersey wall into a rebel.
That'd be awesome.
It'd be a little
What's the
scenic
probability of
diagram
that?
where you
It's
press
high.
a button and it springs forward and shoots the rebel off the table. That'd be great.
Alan Tudyk is that character. I really do like him.
Yeah, I
The
like
show
him.
where he plays an alien, where it's that kind of deadpan.
Yeah, Resident Alien.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Resident Alien. Yeah, where it's that kind of deadpan humor. And you see it then in Rogue One where he's just talking to Andor and he says, the probability of death, it's high.
Yeah, it's
Now
high.
you
It's
see it.
very high.
It's very
Yeah.
high. And
I want to end, because we're coming up to the end here. I want to end with this thought and ask you all just real quick if you had the same thought I did. Rich mentioned the guys being marched out, the recruits being marched out to.
that was me.
Oh, well, no, it wasn't you. It was somebody else who mattered.
Yes.
Mentioned marching the recruits out to quell the uprising there, right?
Yeah.
How many of you thought in that moment to yourself, that's Robbie?
In the moment, I did not think that, but now I will never not think that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whole
When the
unit of
shot-
Robbies.
When the shot was taken, I thought, oh, there go the Robbies. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. As always, a good conversation. I am really eager to find out what you think of The Last of Us, the second season.
Now, how many
And-
episodes are out now?
4.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll be very interested to find out what you think of that.
Yeah.
So, all right, boys. Well, thank you very much. Let's bask in this very short time in the glory that is this I'll be honest with you, unbelievably existent Star Wars story, and that we're going to be able to have this for ourselves for the rest of our days. That no matter what happens, no matter how many crappy characters they throw at us and toys to try to go with it, that we have this pure joy to be with us for the rest of our days. So, and that we all got to see it together
until they take it off of Disney Plus.
Well, I'll be buying it on 4K, so I will always
That's
have
right.
It's living here.
It's living here.
It's gonna live on my shelf
in my brain
forever. It's gonna live there forever. Until
yeah. No, I've been watching a couple of episodes of this show that Seth Rogen's on Apple TV, and he's like head of a movie studio or whatever. And one of the lines they were talking about, they're talking about making movies or whatever. And one of the characters is like, but when it's good forever. And that's what I'm thinking of with Andor and obviously Rogue One and like, man, when they get it right, it's good forever. And it's one of those things so that's what I feel like we're experiencing right now. I mean, fingers crossed on the last 3 episodes, but I have faith. So
you know what? Even if the last 3 suck, I'm willing to stop watching at episode 9 and say that was it.
Yep.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Well done.
I mean,
yeah.
Based on how it's going and your guys' reactions to it, I think they'll stick the landing.
Yeah, I do too.
I do too. So,
or they'll have a 14-year-old girl kill the Emperor with a
dagger, with a knife, and drop it from hand to hand.
Some little Jedi drops her lightsaber into the other hand.
Here's your 5 years and 6 books of storytelling.
And then all the stormtroopers explode. Ah!
Their armor falls off.
That's right.
All right, boys. Well, thank you very much. And until next time.
This concludes our Speak Nerd and Enter broadcast.